In this video, we're going to talk about templates in Dreamweaver. And templates are a very important feature because they make your work go so much better. So the obvious question is, well, what is a template? And in brief, it's a kind of model on which you base all the other pages in your site. So the idea is to create what you want the overall look and feel of the site to be, and then base new pages on that look and feel. So the idea is to create the look and feel for all the pages in your site, create one page that looks exactly like that, and duplicate that all the way through your site. Well, why would we use a template? Well, for one, it provides a lot of consistency. When people come to your site and the pages change their look and feel from moment to moment, from page to page, they get confused. And confused readers quickly become X-readers. So what you want to do is ensure that although the content in an individual page may change, the basic presentation is going to remain consistent. Now, of course, that content from page to page will change, and a template makes it very easy to create just such variable content. So you're not locked in, obviously, to simply one page for your entire site, but rather a bunch of pages, and on each page there's content that is relevant to that page only. And finally, using templates really improves your workflow. That is, it makes you much more efficient, and that's one of the things in professional writing that's so important. Yeah, you could spend hours creating a page and then trying to copy it every time you create a new page, but by using templates, your work is far more efficient and you go so much faster. So, the key point, if you will, is that when a template changes, so do all the other pages on which it's based. Not only is the content variable, you're allowed to make changes from page to page, but if you decide at some point in the process that you think that this thing should be here as opposed to there on all the pages, when you make that change to the template, Dreamweaver offers to automatically update all those pages. Now note, it only offers to update those pages, those parts of pages that are shared by everything on your site. And when you make one change rather than a whole bunch, not only do you go faster, but you give yourself less opportunity to make mistakes. So in brief, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to create a page that's got all the look and feel and the key elements that you want to appear on every page on your site. You're going to say that certain parts of it can be edited and certain parts can't. So for example, you want the same site header, you want the same footer, you want the same look and feel. But at the other end, you want the content parts of your page to be able to be edited by you as necessary. And once you've created those new pages, you make changes to them, as I've been saying, based on what's in the template as what's designated as editable. And then you can make changes to the template itself. And those changes, to repeat, will be reflected automatically on all the other pages in your site that are based on your template. So let's look at it in action, and rather than just watching it, work along with me. What I've done is just load an index page that I've created before, and it's part of a website. As you can see in the file window, I've got a site, and I'm calling this template demo, and I've got this index file and some media files. This is stuff that we've done before. And if you look at the page, it's sort of a bare bones HTML5 page with a header, a nav, and a side, a section for our content, and a footer. And I haven't put any information in there. So let's just, and I haven't certainly formatted it or done anything to make it look very interesting. So let me just do some quick edits. Where I've got header, I'm going to say this is my site header. And where it says nav, I'm going to change that to page 1, page 2, and page 3. 3. I'm going to have 3 pages on this site. And my aside is going to be a comment about each page. So I'll just leave that as aside for the moment. And section is where I'm going to have my variable content. So for each page in my site, there'll be somewhat different content. And for my footer, I'm just going to put in contact info, and maybe I'll insert the date. Just go ahead and do that very quickly. Tell it to update it automatically, and there's my date. So what I've got here, again, not very well formatted or formatted at all, but I have the sort of bare bones of a page that I'm going to use for a template. Now, if we stop and take a look and say, what parts of this page do we want to appear exactly the same all the way through the site? Well, obviously we don't want the site header to change. That's where we put the logo or whatever else you want to call it. And we don't want the navigation to change because we want to always make sure that our navigation remains consistent from page to page, and that any page you can reach from one place, you can reach from somewhere else. The aside and the section, however, are going to be variable content. That is, depending on the page that we're building, we're going to want to be able to change that content. And finally, the footer, where it says contact info, etc., that's going to also remain the same from page to page to page. So the first thing that we want to do then is designate 2 of our sections as editable. In Dreamweaver template terms, we want to be able to say that these 2 sections off the page are going to be able to be changed independently of anything else on the site. So with that as a kind of overview, the first thing I'm going to do, remember I have created this as part of a site that I've already defined, and instead of saving it as an HTML file, I'm going to save this as a template. And Dreamweaver asks me for the name of this template, so I'll just give it here as template demo and click save, and it'll ask me to update links even though there's really nothing to update. Notice that as soon as I save this particular template as a template, Dreamweaver created a new folder called templates, and inside there, as we'll see, is the template that I just created. And you'll notice that the extension is DWT, not HTML. DWT, quite obviously, Dreamweaver template. Now, a couple of things are very important. If I were to create another template, Dreamweaver would also put it in that folder, the templates folder. And if I hadn't had a templates folder already, it would have gone ahead and created one. The key idea here is that Dreamweaver always will look for template files inside the templates folder. And you don't want to put anything else in that folder, and you don't ever want to change its name or move it from the default location where Dreamweaver has created it. So this is very, very important. Now, as I said, the site header is going to remain the same, and the navigation is going to remain the same, and the footer is going to remain the same. But I want my aside and my section to be editable. So I'm going to select those. And as you can see down here in the status bar, as soon as I select it, aside shows up as part of the page that is being selected. And I'm going to come to the Insert menu. I'm coming down to Template Objects, and I'm going to select Editable Region. And I'm going to call this Aside, if I can type properly. And when I click OK, Dreamweaver puts a little blue turquoise kind of a marker to show me that this is the editable part of this page, and it's called Aside. And I'm going to do that one more time with my section. So I'm going to select it. As you can see, it's selected down in the status bar as well. I'm going to go to the Insert menu, come down to Template Objects, and select Editable Region. And this time I'm going to call this Section. Now you're going to use meaningful names depending on what you're doing, but this will be enough for our purposes. And I'm going to click OK. And again, Dreamweaver puts in an indicator saying that this is an editable section. So I've got 2 editable sections. So I'm going to save this one more time because I've made changes since the last save. And I'm going to go to File, New Page. And this time, I'm going to select Create. I've created a page, and so far it's untitled, but I'm going to save it immediately. Always a good idea. I'm going to save this page as page1.html. And you can see I'm saving it in this folder called Template Demo. This is the folder that I'm using when I define my site. And now I want to edit it. And the first thing you'll notice is as I'm moving around the page, the cursor is one of those do not enter signs. And as I mouse over various sections, it changes to the I-beam, which says I can insert it. But you'll notice the site header is not editable, can't do anything to it. The navigation bar, page 1, page 2, etc., can't do anything to it. But the aside section and the section, if you excuse that, those. So I'm just going to put in something in here in the aside, and I'll just hit a few more spaces so we can see a little more clearly what's going on. And I'm going to say, this is the aside for page 1. And down here, again, I'll hit a few returns so you can see things a little more clearly. I'm going to say, this is the section for page 1. So you can see nothing deathless is happening here, but I do want you to note this is something very, very important, that the site header and the nav bar and the footer can't be changed. But in this case, the aside and the section can be changed. And that's because when I was creating my template, I designated those 2 areas as editable. Let's repeat this a couple of more times. So I'm going to again go to File, New, select that template. And again, the same thing is going to happen. I'll just hit a couple of returns so we can see something a little more clearly. And I'll say, this is aside for page 2. You can see that I'm going to save this. And I'll just copy and make a change. This is section for page 2. And now I'm going to save my page. And I'm going to call it page2.html. And I'm saving it in my template demo folder. And one more time. And again, I'm going to select the template for this site, and I'll put in some space, and I'll say, this is the side for page 3, excuse me, and save some time by doing some quick copy and pasting. This is the section for page 3, and I'll save this as page 3. Now you'll notice as I save this that as I go from page 1 to page 2 to page 3, they are very, very similar. The only difference among them is the content that's in the aside and in the section. Let's see what this looks like in a browser. And you can see that I happen to have opened page 3, and the information is there, but I can't do really anything much with this except look at this page, because although I've got a navigation bar, I don't have any links that will take me from page to page to page. So let's just get out of this and go back. Now, I could open page 3 or page 1 or page 2 and put in the links for the nav bar separately on all 3 pages. But it's much smarter to go ahead and go back to the template. In this case, it's going to make much more sense to create the links in the template. And then, when I save the template, Dreamweaver will offer to automatically update all the pages that are based on my template. So the first thing I want to do is make sure I see my Properties window because that's where I'm going to put in the link. And as you can see, I'm just going to select a chunk off the nav bar that says page 1, and I'm going to click the folder icon besides the link field, and I'm going to select page 1. And I'm going to do this again for page 2. I'm going to select it. I'm going to go to the folder. I'm going to select page 2 and choose it. Now, for page 3, I'm just going to do something a little different. It's going to amount to the same thing, but I think you'll find that it might be a little faster. I'm going to come down to the link field, as I've done before, but instead of using the folder icon, I'm going to use this link to file icon, and I'm just going to drag it. And you can see there's a kind of a rubber band there, and I'm going to drag it so it highlights page 3. So using the rubber band is exactly the same in terms of the end result as using the folder icon, but it's just a little faster. So now I've got 3 links, page 1, page 2, page 3, but they're only, right now, they only exist on the template. But as soon as I go and save my template, Dreamweaver asks me if I want to update the files that are based on this template. And as you can see, it's page 2, page 3, page 1, and I'll say, sure thing. And Dreamweaver, because I've got this show log button, checkbox, enabled, Dreamweaver says that it's looked at 3 files, it updated 3 files, and there were no files that it couldn't update. So I'm ready to close this out. And let's look at page 1 and page 2 and page 3. You'll notice there's a little asterisk beside each one. And all that means is those pages may have had changes, but they haven't yet been saved. So Dreamweaver gives us something very convenient. I'm going to go to the File menu and select Save All. And you can see that those asterisks have now all disappeared. Well, let's look at page 1. And you can see that there are, in fact, 3 links in the nav bar that seem to be live. So let's preview this. And here you can see, this is in page 1. So we can see that this is the aside and the section. And when I click on page 2, we go to the content that is variable, and we can see that this is page 2's aside and the section for page 2, and similarly for page 3. Now you notice what hasn't changed. The site header hasn't changed, the nav bar hasn't changed, and the footer hasn't changed. So wherever we go, those things, the spacing may have changed a little bit because I just created some extra space in the section and the aside, but the content of the footer, the site header, and the nav bar have all remained the same. I could continue this way, making changes to the template, and all those sections that are not editable will be updated. The sections that are editable will not be. And that is to make sure that Dreamweaver doesn't overwrite any of the work that I've done. So using templates is a very powerful means of creating a site. It ensures consistency, it saves a lot of time and a lot of energy, and it reduces the opportunity to make mistakes. And it's a very important tool and one you'll be using all the time.